Okay, recording is in progress. And everyone, I am going to do something that I somewhat loathe to do, which is I'm going to share a PowerPoint deck in just a moment, because the PowerPoint deck makes it me unable to be able to see your faces, but I am going to share that just for a minute to give a brief introduction to this new series that we are launching today, thanks to the support of the National Science Foundation. And so I'm just going to share my screen and say a few words about what we're getting ready to embark on in terms of the conversation, but a longer term series. And so my name is Lori Peak. I am a professor of sociology at the University of Colorado Boulder, and I also direct the Natural Hazard Center and lead the Social Science Extreme Events Research Network, which is one of 8 federally funded research and reconnaissance networks that you're going to hear a bit more about today and in future Social Science Fridays to come. And so to begin, a word about the Social Science Fridays series. And so for those of you who are National Public Radio listeners and are aware of the Science Friday or Sci-Fi series that Ira Flato and colleagues lead, the Social Science Fridays was meant to be a bit of a riff on that classic series, but also to draw attention to and a space for social and behavioral scientists who study hazards and disasters, an opportunity to come together to learn about new resources, new research, but also to gather, to have conversations about issues of pressing concern to the social science research community and to our partners and with our allies in other fields in engineering, the natural sciences, and so forth. And one of the things that I wanted to say at the outset of this series is that when this field, really in the late 1940s and early 1950s, when social scientists Henry Corintelli, Dines, Gilbert White, and others established what we now refer to as the modern hazards and disaster research field, we can think about how much has changed in the decades that have followed, and what an opportunity this is for us in 2023 and beyond to both build upon that critical foundational work and also to envision new futures, new opportunities in light of ongoing advancements in the field. And today, when you hear from our presenters, Nicole Arrett and Jamie Vickery, I think you're really going to see why this feeling for this conversation is feeling urgent and important. And so just a few words as we proceed with today's session. For those of you who are members of the SCEAR network or are prospective members, just a few words about what SCEAR is all about. Again, we are one of 8 National Science Foundation funded extreme events research and reconnaissance networks. And SCEAR is the network that brings together social scientists who study hazards and disasters in order to advance scholarship on the root causes and human consequences of extreme events. And so we coordinate social science research teams in large-scale disasters. We issue an annual census report that takes stock of the state of the social science hazards and disaster research community and workforce. And we also maintain an interactive map of researchers that highlight the incredible range of disciplinary skills and expertise within this community. If you are not yet a member of the SCEAR network, but you are a social scientist who studies hazards and disasters, I hope that you will sign up for the SCEAR network and join the over 1,400 researchers who are already a part of the social science extreme events research community. So how does SCEAR fit in this broader ecosystem of NSF-funded networks and facilities? As you can see on the screen, the circle in the center, what this represents is the 8 networks that have been funded to date by the NSF as well as by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And so SCEAR is, again, the social science dedicated network, but most recently we have a new network co-led by Nicole Arrett and colleagues focused on public health extreme events research. We also have other networks that focus on engineering, the natural sciences, and other multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary research communities in the hazards and disaster field. What the Converge facility does is links these research networks to broader shared use facilities that are concerned with training researchers and also facilitating data collection and data publication among our diverse research communities. And so today, without further ado, we're going to hear from the social science leadership within the RAPID facility, which is headquartered at the University of Washington and is led by Professor Joe Wortman, but has also recently been joined in terms of the leadership by Dr. Nicole Arrett and Dr. Jamie Vickery, who lead up the social science core of the RAPID facility. And so I'm going to stop my screen share right now, so Jamie and Nicole can get set up with their screen share. And I hope that everybody on the call will join me in a warm virtual welcome for Jamie and Nicole. They're going to provide a presentation that really gives an overview of the RAPID facility resources with a specific lens for why this matters for social and behavioral scientists, how we might be able to access these resources, and how this might contribute to data collection and data sharing efforts in our field. So Nicole and Jamie, thank you so much as ever for what I know is going to be a stimulating presentation and discussion to follow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lori. And I'm assuming and hoping that you can see my screen clearly. Great. Okay, let me get this set up then. Well, thank you so much again for that lovely introduction, and hello to everyone who's joining today. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Jamie Vickery, and I am a research scientist within the Collaborative on Extreme Event Resilience at the University of Washington, where I also, as Lori mentioned, serve as the social sciences specialist for the National Science Foundation supported Natural Hazard and Disaster Reconnaissance Facility, which we'll refer to as the RAPID facility throughout. Nicole and I are so very pleased to be with you all today, and it's heartwarming to see so many familiar faces. So I've been saying hi in the chat to folks, and we're really excited to share with you more information about the RAPID facility, including resources that exist for social science researchers, and also, most importantly, to learn from you about suggestions for how the RAPID facility can further support your social science related research needs. And before I turn it over to Nicole to briefly introduce herself, I want to acknowledge and express our immense gratitude to Lori, the Converge facility, and the Social Science Extreme Events Research Network for providing this space for us to present and discuss with you all. It's very much an honor to be a part of this inaugural Social Science Fridays event, so thank you. And with that, I'll turn it over briefly to Nicole.
Thanks, Jamie, and thanks, Lori. Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Arrett. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Washington School of Public Health and co-PI of the RAPID facility. And as Lori mentioned, I also lead the new Public Health Extreme Event Research Network with 3 other colleagues, David Abramson, David Eisenman, and Jen Horney. So we are very excited to be here, and I will turn it back over to Jamie to get started. Thanks.
So we'll start with a brief background of the RAPID facility and its existence within the larger network of facilities and entities that comprise the Natural Hazards Engineering Research Infrastructure, or NERI for short, which Lori had started to describe. So as some of you may already know, NERI, including its facilities shown here, operates with support provided by the National Science Foundation, and it is a nationwide shared use network of facilities tailored for the natural hazards research community. And hopefully it's not too difficult to see here, but a number of universities across the United States house these facilities, including, for example, Converge at the University of Colorado Boulder, Design Safe at the University of Texas at Austin, and the Boundary Layer Wind Tunnel at the University of Florida. The RAPID facility, headquartered at the University of Washington, is part of this network and institutions that make up the NERI infrastructure aimed at promoting disaster team science. It provides the NERI community and beyond with access to field equipment required to document complex natural hazard events, supports the unique needs inherent with fast-tracked multidisciplinary reconnaissance missions, and facilitates collection of standardized data across events. As part of its mission and values, the RAPID facility enables transformative research by providing investigators with the instrumentation, software, and support needed to collect, process, and analyze perishable data from natural hazards events and disasters. It promotes reconnaissance-based science, shared resources, open data, convergence research, community engagement, and innovation to reduce the adverse impacts of natural hazards. The RAPID engages in a variety of activities to achieve its mission, including acquiring, maintaining, and operating state-of-the-art data collection equipment, developing and supporting mobile applications to support interdisciplinary field reconnaissance, providing advisory services and basic logistics support for research investigations, facilitating the systematic archiving, processing, and visualization of acquired data in design-safe cyber infrastructure, training a broad user base through workshops and other activities, and engaging the public through community outreach and education. We have a variety of resources for the scientific community to use within their own projects and studies. The full list is available at the link shown here, but for today, we are focusing specifically on 2 resources that may be of particular interest and or use to social science researchers in particular, RAP and Street View. In so doing, I'll provide a case study example of RAP and how this has been used in the field, and then I'll turn it over to Nicole to provide the second example and carry out the presentation. RAP is a resource and service provided by the RAPID facility that has great potential for use in social science reconnaissance research. It's an iPad app developed for the reconnaissance community that integrates mission planning and coordination, data collection, and data management into a single unified package. From this app, users can collect questionnaires, checklists, photos, videos, scans, and more. Data is then automatically synced from RAP to the design-safe cyber infrastructure platform that provides cloud-based tools to manage, analyze, and publish data. In the near future, we will launch RAP Lite, which is an iPhone app that one will be able to download from the App Store. Similar to the iPad app, it will have a customizable interface and will automatically sync data to design-safe. Importantly, and we really want to emphasize this, RAP is end-to-end encrypted and in compliance with all NSF cybersecurity guidelines. To showcase how RAP has been used by social scientists, we want to share a case study from a project funded through the Natural Hazards Center Special Call for Tornado Quick Response Research through the Weather Ready Research Award Program. This study, titled Sheltering Behavior and Shelter Access in the Southeastern United States, was led by Dr. John Mathias and his colleagues, Drs. Aaron Asgovan, Tisha Holmes, and Tyler McCreary, all based out of Florida State University. In the context of the December 10th through 11th, 2021 tornado event in Western Kentucky, the goals of the study were to identify the social and physical factors that may constrain tornado shelter access and or use, to develop improved modeling for shelter siting, and to produce recommendations for how sheltering systems can be improved. Dr. Mathias and his team integrated the RAP application into their study design for gathering household survey data. In March of 2022, they went door to door requesting survey participation from Western Kentucky residents following the December 10th through 11th, 2021 tornado event. In total, they gathered 134 surveys, which they then used to identify participants for follow-up focus group interviews. In reflecting upon their experience using RAP, John shared that it's pretty intuitive to use the RAP for surveying. It was easy for me to show the other people on the team how to use the app. Mostly we filled out the surveys ourselves, but sometimes we also gave the iPad to the person to fill out on their own. People, in my experience, found it pretty intuitive as well. And I want to emphasize that the RAPID facility also provides iPads for this specific use. And with that, and moving to the second example, I'll turn it over to Nicole to discuss Street View.
Thanks so much, Jamie. The second piece of instrumentation that we wanted to highlight for that may be of particular interest to social scientists is our iStar Pulsar Plus mobile imaging system. We have 2 of these in the RAPID facility, and they produce Google Street View images or images that are like Google Street View. And they can be they get mounted either to a vehicle, or you can see on the left, one of our RAPID facility staff has it on a backpack, so you can walk around with it. And they can be used to rapidly and non-invasively collect high-resolution ground-based data across large areas. The data is processed on the Mapillary web mapping service, which auto blurs faces and license plates to protect privacy and of people that are on the street. The Street View camera systems shown in the 2 top pictures enable researchers to collect this 360 imagery data from either a car, as shown on the right, or the backpack, as I just mentioned. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about our Street View project that we did here in Seattle using Street View to assess community level impacts and recovery from a global public health emergency that was led by Dr. Joe Wortman, who also directs the RAPID facility, myself, Youngjin Cho, who's a disaster data scientist here at the University of Washington, and Scott Miles, who is the former social sciences lead of the RAPID facility and has now taken on a new career in journalism. So the goals of this study are, first, to capture crisis impacts on business operations, transportation networks, and other community assets. Next, to assess the rate and quality of recovery following shelter in place and how this varies based on a community's socioeconomic characteristics, and to understand the impact of shelter in place policy relaxation on communities following a major crisis. Next slide. So we're going to show a brief video that our University of Washington communications team created that demonstrates this data collection and the types of data that can be generated through this. So Jamie, would you mind playing that video, please?
Oh no, it was of course just working right before when I tested it. And now it looks like we're having some difficulties.
Do you want me to try to share and see if I can play it?
Sure. Yeah, sorry about that all. It was just working.
Technology. All right, let's see here. I wonder if I can play it from the slide itself.
I'm also finding the link.
Yeah, we can play it from the internet. Oh no. Oh, I know why. It's because it's blocked. Huh. There we go. All right, we'll be able to play it now. Maybe we won't. Oh.
So this is a unique study because I'm aware of no other data set that exists that captures an urban region in the midst of a national crisis. And if we don't capture this now, we will not remember what this looked like.
So I'll be driving around the city collecting Street View data for researchers. So this is the NC Tech Pulsar 360 camera that collects images as I drive.
We're going to use this so that you can move through Seattle in the midst of the pandemic to immersively revisit an area at a particular point in time. And so this will be a tangible, concrete record of that. What I've seen is really striking. How many places are familiar to me and how empty they are today. Street View is the tool that we're using to acquire these ground-based scenes, but that's just the first part. We're going to convert that into usable information with the aid of some AI algorithms that will count people, that will count cars, that will count other kinds of measures of business openings or closures. Among the things we're hoping to understand are simple things like what was the average group size before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and then how does that change with time, business closures, the types of businesses that are closed, impacts of those who are living in homelessness, bus service, cars. What we're going to be looking for are socioeconomic characteristics of a neighborhood. We'll be able to get a sense of how that information varies and how we slowly start moving back to normal with time.
So the Street View campaign is ongoing and we continue to collect data, and social scientists have been involved along the way. So we help to design the route to go through different socioeconomic status, neighborhoods with different socioeconomic demographics, as well as making sure that our questions were grounded in social science theory and advance the social sciences literature. So the second case study that we're going to talk about is our Seattle Assessment for Public Health Preparedness in the Duwamish Valley pilot study. Oh, it looks like I'm going backwards here. So the objectives of this study were to assess household and community level knowledge of and access to information, resources, and infrastructure to support adaptation to climate change impacts and other natural hazards, to describe climate change health impacts experienced by community members, and to create opportunities for community members to participate in and provide feedback on community-based and local government efforts to improve resilience and preparedness. And finally, to develop a tool and approach for conducting a rapid community needs assessment in the aftermath of climate-induced flooding and/or other natural hazards. This project was incredibly community engaged. We work closely with community-based organizations and local government. This is an environmental justice community that has a lot of Seattle sea level rise risk and an enormous number of assets in terms of social connection, community advocacy. And we did a combined approach. So we did a survey in the area using the CDC's Community Assessment for Public Health Emergency Response Methods, where we went out and talked to folks. And then we also use the rapid equipment, the Street View imagery, to collect data, imagery data throughout the area. So we went out on November 17th, 2022, and collected baseline data. So blue sky, there was no disaster. We collected imagery of the community. And then on December 22nd, there was a major flooding event in the area. It was a combination of atmospheric conditions, king tide, and because of sea level rise that's impacting the area. And this is what the community looked like after that flood. And the rapid facility was able to get out right away and be able to collect imagery in the flooding event. And so this imagery will help to provide that context to the community, as well as to answer questions about how long and how far the flooding went in ways that we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So who can use the rapid facility? Everyone. So we're open to anyone, academics, government agencies, private industries. We prioritize NSF users, NSF funded users, and we have different rates for NSF versus non-NSF supported users because our rapid equipment is subsidized by NSF through our NSF award. We aim to accommodate all requests and we support individual investigators as well as extreme event research networks. Our NSF grants, if you're writing an NSF grant, you can request rapid support. And so you can call our rapid team and we can provide a consultation and you can write in rapid support into your grant. And you can do this in terms of rapid grants. We do this again with EERs, and you can also do it with regular NSF proposals. We wanted to invite everyone again to take our survey. We're really here to tell you about the rapid facility, but more to hear from you about how the rapid facility can best serve social scientists and make sure that we are being inclusive of your needs. And we'd like to hear from you in this survey. And Jamie actually has a QR code, and I don't have it on my version here, but we'll share that. We'll share this link in the chat for everyone to be able to access. And guidance, you can contact us for a consultation. Any of us or Joe or Jeff and we have a number of in-house rapid facility staff that are able to provide information about costs and equipment and how we can best support you. And we're also looking to develop some case studies for rapid social science applications. So we're particularly interested in working with social scientists to be able to do this. So we have a couple of questions for discussion, which Jamie, would you mind putting these in the chat so that we can see everyone? And again, we really want to hear from you and have a conversation. So thank you. Let me stop sharing here. And I can also stick them in the chat too. So feel free to unmute or you can also participate in the chat. Lori.
Thank you, Nicole and Jamie, for that presentation. And I put a question in the chat, but I guess I'd like to start with your question, which is wonderful, and to thank you for that presentation. I wonder if you could tell us, for the rapid facility, you had that long list of the available resources, but I wonder, are particular resources, are you feeling like they're really designed for, were purchased for the social science community? So you talked about the RAP app designed with social scientists in mind, obviously the Street View camera. Are there other, in that kind of long list of resources, are there resources that you feel are quite relevant for the social science community? Or is it more that you're hoping that social scientists will sort of start thinking differently about, oh, we could be using these resources that predominantly have been used by engineers to date, but maybe this could help us to think differently about the questions we're asking, the way we're doing our research, et cetera. So if that makes sense, thank you.
Yeah, and maybe it would be helpful to just kind of go back in time and talk about how the equipment in the Rapid facility was selected. And so back when the Rapid facility was first started, there was a big workshop at the University of Washington where a number of hazard and disaster researchers came together to identify the types of equipment that should be in the Rapid facility. And obviously there's resource limitations, and so not everything that everyone wanted is there, but the idea was to select equipment that could be used across timescales, across disciplines, to collect data, and perishable data in particular. And so there was one piece of social sciences equipment that was selected at that time, which was an EEG device that was put on people's head to measure brain waves and brain activity in different scenarios. And that hadn't received much traction from the social sciences community in reality. And so what we wanted to do here is to identify ways that we could leverage the existing equipment that we have, which we think is largely the imagery equipment, as well as the rapid equipment. And we're also always open to hearing more about the types of equipment that you'd like to see in the rapid facility. We can't make any promises that we can acquire it because we need resources and support to be able to do that. But we're a listening group, and we want to hear from everyone to see what might be useful for social scientists beyond what's already here. Jamie, did I miss anything or misstate anything?
No, just echoing what you said, and also Lori's question about, I would say it's the latter, Lori, in the sense that, what kind of the data that's already produced from the instrumentation, how can we consider applying this or crafting our research questions as social scientists in a way where that type of data that's produced from these instrumentations, including imagery data, for example, could be used as complementary to other methods that we conduct and incorporate as social scientists. So I think it's both of those things. It's acknowledging what opportunities exist with the instrumentation and data that we have now for data reuse, but also what could be. So it's both of those things.
With Lori's comment, maybe we can go to our first question here, which is, do you have any questions or suggestions for improvement for how the rapid facility could be more inclusive of or attentive to your needs, the needs of the social science research community? Jen.
Yeah.
Hello, good to see you all. I guess, I don't know if it's a question about other technologies or tools. I guess it's more about, like, I love all this equipment, think, wow, it would be fascinating. I love the idea of how can I incorporate it into social science research? How can I shape my questions to use this? But then I always come up against, how would I know how to use it and process it without having to hire experts who can do the kind of technical pieces, because I might be able to envision in some limited ways, perhaps right now, how I could use it, but I don't know that if I collected this data that I would know what to do with it. So I guess that's one question about training. And then also, is there some program, I'm trying to think of what this would be called, but the closest I can think of is like with emergency managers, where you're trying to understand what an emergency manager does. You ask if you can do a ride along, and you get to understand kind of how they're using it, how they're thinking about it, and get to know it that way. Just being paired with somebody who already uses this equipment, either a social scientist or an engineer, or other kind of scientist, just to get a flavor for the way they think about the technology, so that because I feel like I learn by watching and doing, and then also just the expertise. What would I do with this data once I collected it, unless I wrote a technical expert into my grant? So 2 questions there.
Jamie, do you want to take this, or you want me to? So I think to the second question about the, how do you use this data unless you write a technical expert into your grant? So the Street View data in particular, we've done a number of different things with that data. And so I've had students manually look through that data. So for example, to be able to count people in parks for our COVID-19 Street View data. So we wanted to see if park use changed at different points. And so we were able to go in and they were able to identify research questions about, how has park use changed? Were there different people and different types of activities going on in the parks? And so they were able to go in and manually observe that. So our data science team is doing things like counting pedestrians and seeing if the distance between pedestrians changed over time in ways that, you would need a technical expert to use. But I think there are alternative ways to be able to use the data that you could do alone, or, and we do encourage participation in multidisciplinary teams. For our Street View, our project that we're doing with the Duwamish Valley, that community engaged project, one of the things that we're hoping to, or we had been hoping to use the data for, was to create a story map. So almost like an adapted photo voice project, where we would collect interview data and have people speak to the climate impacts that were happening in that pre-post flood event. So I think there's really creative opportunities to use the imagery data to answer social science research questions independent of technical experts, but there's definitely a lot of opportunity for collaboration in multidisciplinary teams. And the RAP app is very useful. It's a open access survey tool. And so, it's something that's like similar to Qualtrics that you can use for free. And the nice thing about it is that it can geotag information. It automatically uploads data to Design Safe. You don't necessarily have to publish that data. If you're concerned about human subjects issues, you can, deal with the data after it gets there, but it's backed up into this very secure platform that is part of the NERI network. So there's definitely opportunities, I think, to do both. And Jen, I'm sorry, but I now have forgotten your first question, if you wouldn't mind re-sharing that.
I guess it's kind of like what you're doing, just it's a little bit of a ride along to understand how people are using it, the technologies themselves, getting ideas, because when they're so new, it's hard to imagine the space in which you're working, and then the technology and all the different ways you're just mentioning. And so just having access to people who have used it and being able to hear their stories, and even working alongside in multidisciplinary teams, which I do, just working alongside people who are actually collecting this data to see, oh, here's where a social science question would be appropriate, or here's how this data might be useful to answer a social science question. Just familiarity, I guess, and kind of exposure maybe to these different ideas.
That's great feedback. And we're trying to do these case studies, and we're going through a evolution of the Rapid Facility website. So they're not yet posted there. And we're doing a couple of things with the website. One, trying to make it more social sciences friendly. So avoiding terms like instrumentation, which I know is not one that we use, or we use in a different way than our engineering colleagues, but also to showcase those different case studies. And if you have an idea, we're very eager to work with you to kind of figure out how to make it happen, so that we can create more examples for folks to be able to understand how to use this equipment.
Yeah, and you touched upon training, Jen, in that question, and as part of the annual rapid intensive training workshop that the facility hosts in Seattle each July, Nicole and I have been in discussion really starting a couple of years ago about, okay, how do we, when social scientists are invited and accepted to participate as workshop participants, what kinds of specific, we want them to have the same experience as others who are attending for how to use equipment, but coming up with very specific training that would be more relevant to social scientists to understand, okay, here's how you would access this type of data. Here's how you could potentially use it. Example research questions. So what you were getting at is exactly what Nicole and I are also working through, and that will obviously be leaning on the social science community too to understand like what isn't clear. How might we be able to facilitate a deeper understanding of how these resources can be used most effectively by social scientists? So I wanted to let you know that that is in the works, and we're continuing to try to improve that experience for social science participants.
Perfect. Thank you for doing all that work. That sounds exciting.
Thanks, Jen. Christopher.
Thanks for this. Is really cool resources, and it's pretty exciting. And I'm going to try to answer your question, but also pull in the ethics question about, I think specifically this street view data in one. So it may be a little clunky, but I'll try to see if I can make it work. Because I wonder about how, you have this data that could be not seen as human subjects data, but in a lot of ways really is. And even if it's not technically human subjects data from like an IRB perspective, definitely has a lot of like social implications with it. And so I wonder if there's a way that, like you all are facilitating that discussion of like, here's the ethics on reporting requirements, standards, these types of things, or even ways to like help people work with IRB in some of those points. Because you could see, if you're coming from an engineering perspective, let's collect this data, this is open, let's use it. Like that's something that probably should be reviewed by someone else. But if you don't know that, it might not hit your IRB until later. And so kind of helping people work through that space. I wonder if you have any ideas or thoughts or kind of ways we can dig into that ethics conversation here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and we went through some of this while we were while we were setting up our COVID-19 Street View project, and we sent it to our IRB, and they said this isn't human subjects data because you are collecting data, your imagery data of people where it's reasonably expected that they are in the public and their picture could be taken. And we weren't comfortable with that response and wanted to add additional human subjects protections. And so that's why we chose the mapillary interface, which blurs faces and license plates. And Design Safe unfortunately doesn't have that capability. So while our data is uploaded in Design Safe for our own internal use, we don't have it published on Design Safe for that reason, because we wanted to make sure that it was indeed, protected. And so that's the practice that Rapid is taking across now all of its whenever we're using Street View and advising teams to do that. So we do work with teams that are using our equipment to think about how to publish data and to what considerations they might take in that. And so I don't think that's a full answer to the question. There's also, we had a number of different folks interested in the data, and some of the things that people were interested in using it for was to look at maybe questions about different demographic groups and how they were, active or not during the pandemic. So could we use the data to demonstrate, for example, that certain folks had to go to work while others didn't, by looking through the data and either having AI or some person, assign a person a race or an ethnicity or a gender. And, we chose not in our particular project to do that. We thought that there were a lot of concerns. Those questions, I think, are very important to answer, but I think they require a larger discussion about how we go about answering those types of questions and what we as a community want to see in terms of best practices when we're thinking about how to use this type of data to answer questions that have a lot of value, but could potentially have a lot of process challenges that we need, I think, more thought through.
Thank you. And just like a clarifying question, how much of that happens, on the project development team versus is like you're reviewing as like the people who hold access to the tools? Like, is that something that you would have to request and you're reviewing ethically, or is that something you did because you're on the project and care about those things? Does that make sense?
So we work with investigators for the investigator driven research. And so we are not trying to drive the scientific questions, but we can provide consultation on its use. And so we haven't been in a situation where we've been not been able to work with an investigator in a positive way, or have someone who hasn't been receptive to that, to thinking about these considerations. And indeed, I think that, engineers have been very open to hearing from social scientists about how to do this work better and to be thinking about these types of issues.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I was
Very
just
cool.
going to add, Lori plugged it in the chat here, but about the Converge training module focused on perishable data collection and others. It's just a phenomenal resource that I tell everyone about, all of the wonderful modules and check sheets. And we had this exact question actually at the American Meteorological Society annual meeting about the ethics of, do investigators undergo training before they go into the field with this equipment? And I think this is really where we emphasize our existence within this larger network, where we have these resources, we have the capabilities to help educate and train the next generation, current and next generation of disaster researchers on how to ethically conduct research. Because there's also, we can certainly talk about another topic, but this is something that's also come up even outside of this particular context with use of this, with data collection instrumentation. I think, Lori, it was an article that you co-authored back in 2004 about going beyond the IRB and how sometimes we recognize that something that may be exempt, may not still, we'd still have to take these extra precautions and be really cognizant about what we're doing and asking the why behind what we're doing. And if it's the most effective questions to be asking, if we should be doing it at all. So anyway, I just wanted to echo what Lori shared in the chat, and thank you so much for this question. And I hope we can continue this discussion.
Andrea?
Yeah, I think I was trying to scroll back up to the questions. I think I may be straying. I'm sorry in advance. Part of this might be for my naivety too, in the space, but I was wondering, so this data seems pretty costly in terms of time and resources to collect. And so I could see for any given disaster or time period, there might be multiple research projects that might be really interested in using that data. And you sort of touched upon it with, requests coming in later and having to decide whether you could, give them that data or not for the purpose intended. And I was just curious if you could maybe follow up on how do people know what's out there? How could they get access to this data sort of retroactively? Is that allowed? Or can they get sort of a downstream product of the actual imagery? So just anything you have to say would be great.
Really great questions. And some of them are beyond the rapid facility and go into some of the work that Converge is coordinating across these 8 extreme event research networks. And so NSF has supported these 8 extreme event research networks to be able to coordinate perishable data collection across different disciplines. And so instead of awarding 1 rapid or 5 rapids to, rapid grants to 6 different investigators that are, math doesn't make sense, but 5 rapid awards. Now they're, encouraging these EERs to go out and collect that data together and to make that data available to their community for that reuse. Rapid as a facility encourages investigators to publish their data on Design Safe and make it available for reuse. And we're trying to do a better job of working with investigators to ensure that the Rapid facility is cited in their data products as well as in their their publication so that you are able to kind of rapidly recognize or easily recognize that it's data that has been collected through the rapid facility. So I guess the twofold answer to your question is, one, that we're trying to work with these EERs more often so that we can coordinate and make data available, because we know that those EERs are going to make that data available. And then, you know, if there aren't EERs going out, then working with individual investigators, and then to encourage that data reuse and to make sure that it's tagged so that you're able to easily find it. That being said, if you're wondering if we had a project on a particular event, you can always call us and we can, you know, try to figure that out and link you with the investigators who may not have been ready to publish their data. You know, some of it is that a lot of this data is huge and it takes time to curate it and get it ready for publication. So while we talk about rapid publication and we have folks on our staff that facilitate that, sometimes it just takes a little bit longer than any of us would like to get it out and be able to be in a position to reuse.
Thank you. That's great information. I may be calling.
Awesome. We'd love to hear from you. Catherine.
Hi, thank you. So I am, I'm an evaluator. And so my interest in these kinds of tools is kind of primarily from an evaluation perspective, where we may be working with kind of nonprofits or other organizations that aren't necessarily approaching these questions from, you know, an academic lens or an academic institution, or kind of, you know, more importantly from an academic grant, but there's still, you know, significant overlap, I think, in the interests of, you know, evaluators and social scientists who are looking at things like needs assessment. And I think that these tools can be a really great way of, you know, doing a lot of data sharing to kind of, you know, reduce burden on folks affected by disasters. And I'm just curious about kind of what you know, data sharing opportunities there are for, you know, evaluators who may not be working, you know, strictly within academic spaces, to either kind of share in some of the data that social scientists are collecting, or share the data that they're collecting, or just, you know, kind of otherwise continue to engage in, but, you know, understanding that we're approaching it from slightly different lenses.
Jamie, do you want to take this one, or you?
Well, my first, you know, my mind goes to design safe and being able to register. You can do that for free for a design safe account, and that's where the data that you're discussing about access data that would be stored, especially through instrumentation that's been used through that folks have used through the rapid facility, that's automatically synced to design safe. Obviously, some of it isn't automatically published, but there is available data for folks to access through design safe. And as far as social science related data, now I know this is something that we're continuing, and especially Lori and the Converge facility and SC are continuing to push, is, you know, an encouragement of social science instruments and data to be uploaded to design safe for use for other social science researchers. So I know that that's still obviously a direction that we're wanting to go, and we still have some work to do on that front, but that is ultimately, you know, a key goal of building out design safe, so that we have social science data more readily available. And Nicole and Lori, if you'd like to add to that, please do, of course.
I think that covered it. Yeah, and you know, we do work with folks that are not NSF funded. So if they're, you know, you have a project and you're interested in working with the rapid facility, again, we're trying to serve as many folks as possible. We do prioritize people who are working on NSF grants, but if you have creative ideas about how to use the rapid facility in an evaluation, we're very open to figuring out if there is an opportunity to collaborate. Lori.
Thank you. This has been so helpful, and just I think a couple of the threads that have come up. I was thinking about Andrea's question, how she started with, you know, that it can be so cost intensive and time intensive to collect the data in the first place, but then tying this thread together about then what do you do with the data? And one of the conversations we've been having is, of course, like investigators, they apply for award funding, they get in award funding to go out and collect the data, but then on the back end, the time and effort human time and effort to get the data cleaned, curated, ready for upload and sharing to the community. Oftentimes that is not accounted for in the initial award. And so one thing I'm just thinking about with the training, and I know Nicole and Jamie, you have been such powerful voices for thinking about, do we need social science specific training? I'm almost wondering, is it social science specific training for both using the tools? So there's a part one, we have our questions, we lead with our questions, but then how can the tools and the technologies help to facilitate and maybe even transform some of the questions we're asking? But then there's a part two, training, once you have all the data, what does it take to ethically and logistically get that data ready for public sharing, as well as the instruments? So as Catherine's asking, there can be sort of this full circle where other social and behavioral scientists have access to the data. So it is just, I mean, it really is making me think about just not only do our awards not always cover that full life cycle from collection to publication, but it's also just thinking about if there may be a possibility within the Rapid facility to think about your social science specific training with that life cycle in mind. So thank you.
That's a great point, Lori, and way to summarize that. In our most recent renewal, we hired a new data processing specialist, and that person works with investigators who use the Rapid facility instrumentation to do the post data processing and really try to get a post collection data processing to get that data uploaded in a more rapid way. So we have some of those resources in-house, and we also are eager to do some data reuse training. So I love the idea of having a social sciences specific training that integrates that data reuse piece. But because I think that, we could use, once it's all curated, it becomes a lot more accessible for us to access and use.
Mm-hmm.
And the Mapillary platform is really easy and user friendly. You can search, maybe I could pull it up. Would that be helpful for folks? Hold on one second. Let me find a clean Chrome platform here. If anyone has any questions while I do this.
Well, you're pulling it up, Nicole. I was just going to say to your latter question that you and Jamie posed about how does this make you think differently? I have to say that Google Street View case example that you shared, that alone, thinking about how engineers and social scientists can come together to use these technologies, but also to answer just this range of questions. And I also was going to share, I have a colleague in sociology at Colorado State University who he's been using drone. He's literally been training his sociology undergraduates in his environmental social class. They've been using drones, and they've been using the drone footage to track gentrification in Fort Collins, Colorado, and really think about sort of spatial change in the city. And Andrea, as a Fort Collins resident, maybe your house has had a flyover, but it really has, it's made me think a lot differently about teaching, about research, and using these technologies as sort of a lens through which to think about what new questions could we ask and what new training opportunities might we be able to provide to our students. So I was just going to share that as another specific example from the classroom, building on your great examples. So thank you.
Thanks, Lori. And I'll just quickly, in our last few minutes, pull up my Google Chrome here. So this is the Mapillary map interface here. So if you just go to mapillary.com and you can go to Explore Map Data, and this pulls up a map, and you can go to Filters and type in UW Rapid, and this will show all of the imagery that we've collected. So I'm going to go into the Seattle area here, so you can see some of the data that we've collected here. So just needs a second to load. So you start to see these green lines, and this is up here our Street View campaign. So this is available to anyone, and you can click on the the green line. This is overwhelming my computer, I think, with Zoom here. But if we give it a minute to stop being angry, maybe we can pick a, let's see if we can't see. Okay, here we go. So you can click on this and you'll see the 360-degree view that we've collected, and it will come in this little box here on the lower left. And if you enlarge it, you'll be able to see the 360 view. So you can see what the camera sees here. And you can also follow the car. So you can have the car move forward. If I can play this, I believe there's a play button somewhere here.
Top middle
here. What?
Top middle, it looks like.
Oh, it's because that's my Zoom is over it. That makes sense. Yeah, so if you hit play, you'll be able to, oh, I think my computer's just too overwhelmed, but you can follow the car. And if you scroll in here, what you'll see as we go closer is these are all of the routes that we've taken. I mentioned that we did this Street View campaign over time. So you can see the longitudinal data collection, and you can actually go across. So if you were here, there's you can click through the different images to be able to see them over time. So as I mentioned that my students had manually gone through these, they were able to use this mapillary interface to do this in real time and not need to access it in another way. So it's a good tool, and you can go to see whether or not we've collected data in a particular area or event. And I see a question in the chat here. I'm wondering more about how to get access to governmental data, for example, videos from a helicopter flying over a flooded area, then creating my own. Do you know about tools to better access or use it? Unfortunately, that's outside of the Rapid facilities purview, but I don't know if anyone else on the call might be able to answer your question. Does anyone have any thoughts about that?
I know that's a good question. I think a lot of that is probably protected or not shared data, but I don't know if anyone does have an answer to that in our minute remaining. Maybe you will take to the chat or follow up with our colleague who posted that in there, and thank you for the question. And just as our commitment is to start and end on time, we are going to go ahead and wrap this up now. Jamie and Nicole, thank you so much for the thoughtful presentation and for really refining this presentation to bring to the social science community. Jamie just reshared the survey link. If you haven't completed that yet, if everyone could please just take a couple of minutes to fill that out to really help to refine the resources that are available through the Rapid facility. And then last but not least, we just, on behalf of Jamie, Nicole, myself, and the entire team here at the Natural Hazard Center, we really wanted to thank everyone who is here today and to ask if you would please save the date for our next Social Science Friday, which is coming up. We have one scheduled for May and one scheduled for June, which you can find the dates and times up on the converge.colorado.edu website. And so with that, please know that the video recording from today's session will be posted on the Converge website for this particular Social Science Friday event. And we hope that you all have a really good weekend. And please remember to take care of yourself and others, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you. Have a great day.